This is the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, the biggest, most fun podcast in the galaxy. We're Adeena, Brian, Cris, and Steve, and we love talking all things science fiction. This is Season 4, but our human adventure is just beginning as we gather around our computer consoles to discuss the science fiction of film, television, and literature. Join us on our quest for fun and fascination as we go where no podcast has gone before. Everyone has permission to come aboard the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, but make sure to find your seat fast because we're taking off in 3, 2, 1, hit it. This podcast is a part of the Trek Geeks Network.
Greetings and hello. Welcome to another episode of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, the show where we get together with our friends and have really cool conversations about all things sci-fi. Today, I want to get into a really in-depth discussion on one of the most significant, I guess, and influential time travel series of all time, Back to the Future. But before we get into all of that, let me introduce you to my usual hosts. We are joined by Adeena Mignona.
Hi.
And Steve Merkin.
Good afternoon, friends of the podcast.
Our other
and you
friend,
guys are
Brian.
Hearing this in the future, and we're in the past.
Ooh.
So we're time traveling right now.
That's
Time
right.
traveling right now.
Yes.
And Brian, unfortunately, he was doing some experiments, got stranded in the past, so now he's trying to survey the area that he's in. We're supposed to get some information from him later in the week, but he'll be okay.
He needs to find that 1.21 gigawatts of power.
Exactly. And as we know, I tried doing that the other day, and that's very difficult.
I'm certain he didn't take anything from the future.
Gigawatts. It's 1.21, right? 1.21.
I could hear him saying it.
That's why I feel like
1.121.
See, now that I said it, I'm like confused. Maybe it's 1.51. I thought it was 121.
I thought 121 sounds right to me.
Okay. 1.21 gigawatts.
Oh,
there you go.
say it like this. You say it like him. 1.21 gigawatts.
You're
much better.
Trying to get back to the future, you know.
I love it. That's actually really
good.
awesome.
That's really good.
We're gonna have you pop in like periodically now with that impression.
It's all comes back from Taxi when he was Father Jim. But anyway, that's gotta okay. So let's begin.
So yeah, I just want to go around and what is everyone's experience with Back to the Future?
Oh, I loved it so much. I was 11 when it came out. And I want to say that I saw it in the theater, like for my birthday or one of my friends' birthdays. I want to say it was my birthday because it came out in early July and my birthday is late July. But I don't have any tangible record of that. But I did see it in the theater and I loved it. And I've always loved it. My kids love it.
That's good. That's good that they can get involved in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same for me. I saw all three films at the theater as they were released, which was, true pleasure. And it was very unique when you're watching Back to the Future because the title itself leaves you wondering, wait a minute, are they going back to the future? Wait a minute, what is the story? And then to see it unfold it's great. Besides, I mean, God, you gotta love Christopher Lloyd. He's such a great comedic actor, and working well with Michael J. Fox was just really great. By the way, any relation there, Cris, to Michael J. Fox?
Unfortunately,
okay,
as I know, no relation to him.
That's okay. I just was wondering. Anyway,
yeah. I wasn't when the movie first came out. I feel like I sort of recognized Christopher Lloyd, but I didn't know what I knew him from, because I was a little too young to really know. Taxi was probably like in my consciousness in some way, but Michael J. Fox, I knew and loved from Family Ties.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like hearing his stories about how he was filming Family Ties and Back to the Future at the same time. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. And it was weird because again, I knew him as this preppy, uptight, guy from Family Ties, and to see him in a slightly different role, I was 11 at the time. And so processing that was a big, that whole concept of you're aware of a character, but you don't really, know all these things. And to see him in such a different role, I remember being like really weirded out by that concept.
Yeah, that happened to me a lot as a kid where I'd see someone that I recognized from something and then seeing them in something else. Crazy. For me, Back to the Future, I think I saw it when I was probably 10 or 11, but obviously not in the theater. It was at my friend's house, and it was just one of the things we'd do. We'd hang out in the morning and we'd watch a movie. We might even get like 2 or 3 parts in. But yeah, I love the franchise, and it's just, I always have so much fun watching them. And I made the mistake the other night of putting one on, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try and do some work. And I put one on, and I was like, nope, that's not a good idea, because I immediately
You're going to watch the movie.
You're going to watch the movie. Exactly.
Yeah. And I remember it was probably a few years later that I realized Christopher Lloyd was in Star Trek 3. And my mind it was one of those, oh my God, I had no, like, I probably knew it because I had seen, Star Trek 3 at that point several times, but I didn't, again, put 2 and 2 together. I, wasn't mature enough to get that. So it was a few years later that I figured it out, and it was like mind blown.
Yeah, I'm still like, even though I know that, and I've known it for a long time, when I watch the 2 films, I'm still like, wait, they're the same. It's the same actor.
Well, that's how awesome Christopher Lloyd is when you really are brought into 2 different universes, and you can look at them and you're like, these are 2 different characters. That to me is where you know that you've got a good actor.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's phenomenal. Just so much fun to watch all the time.
I mean, to think of it, because to me, he was always, the comedic actor from Taxi. So to see him playing a Klingon and a, intense character in that, right?
Yeah.
But then going to see then going to Back to the Future, where he's back to doing comedy. It's like, okay, that's who he is. That's the Christopher Lloyd we know and love. But in Star Trek 3,
he was so
it's
good,
like,
though.
wow,
yeah. He was really great.
Yeah,
he was amazing.
Yeah. See, it always goes back to Star Trek. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll get back. I was going to ask. So I guess
we'll get back to the
Trek. Yes.
Yeah.
It was also interesting that they chose the DeLorean at that time, which was a short production car made in Ireland using a Renault motor and transmission, put together by an American executive who ran Pontiac in the 1960s and wanted to build his own car. And of course, we all know what happened to John DeLorean, the trouble he got trying to keep the company going, and the fact that he was arrested for cocaine sales.
I didn't know that.
Why? Oh, you
I didn't know about the cocaine. I heard that there was a whole issue.
No! But if you look at license plates for the DeLoreans out there, the most popular one that was out, I remember seeing, was Coke Machine.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes. John DeLorean, he was a visionary, and everybody thought this was going to be the greatest car, built with great safety features. It was an aluminum body. I mean, the way it looks in the movie, that is the car. But it was built on a dream and a hope and a prayer, and he got the Irish government to invest a lot of money into the DeLorean car company, and sadly, like many individuals who want to build their own cars, failure was just around the corner. But the fact that they chose it for this movie was because it looked like a spaceship. It was the appropriate car for this type of film.
I can't imagine. Can you imagine any other car?
No. It wouldn't. It just wouldn't work to me.
The wing, the door wings.
Yeah.
You need.
I mean, could you just see they're going, Marty, we got to get into the Chevette. It's the only car that will take us back to the future. And you go, this piece of junk, it won't take us to the street corner. But a DeLorean, 88 miles. And that's another thing. Why 88 miles per hour?
I think it's just, to me, that just sounds good. It has a nice ring to it, 88 miles an hour.
How about you take both those 8s and turn them on their sides, and what do you have? You have 2 infinity signs. I always wondered, is that the reason why they chose? Because 8 would have been fast enough, but 88 was, so you have double infinity signs, and it's like, is that the reason why they chose that number? I don't know, but it's always made me ponder.
I never thought about that, to be honest. I always just thought it was just like, it just has a nice flow. 88 miles an hour. It just sounds good.
Yeah, I always assumed it was just something that was a little past speeds that people are going to drive, yet not too crazy, like not too fast, because they gotta be able to you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
gotta be
you
able
still
to
have to be able to
accelerate
go to that
and-
speed.
Yeah, you got the, yeah, I just, it just seemed to make sense where it was fast without being ridiculously fast.
yeah, because they're in the parking lot
Uh-huh.
of a mall here in Southern
Right. So it
California.
can't be like too crazy. So I feel like it was more like a random / practical decision.
And
Which
we go ahead.
I was going to say, we have to get back to that mall at some point in this discussion because I'm so fascinated by it. And I just love all the.
I've been there. There was a car show about a year or two ago where all the exotics were there at that particular mall. And they chose that mall because it was where Back to the Future was shot.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's cool. So is this a two-part question? What is your favorite film in the series? And what is your least favorite in the series?
Well, the first one is a favorite. I think that's, I don't know. I feel like that's easy.
Okay. I think that's like the general consensus that one is amazing.
And for the other two, it's hard to choose because they're set in such different time periods with different extra characters that I don't know. For a while, I would have said that I didn't care as much for Back to the Future 3, but I rewatched it recently because again my older son is into it, and I was like, no, actually this is really cute, and I like the love story with Doc Brown and stuff. So maybe I don't know.
Yeah, for me it's always been 2 has always been my favorite. I like 1 a lot, and then 3 is my least favorite just because I'm not a big Western guy. But I rewatched it a couple of years ago, and I did like it a lot more. And I do love the love story because I'm always a sucker for a love story.
And he made a time machine out of a train,
which is pretty cool.
Yes, I love trains.
Steam train at that. Steam for me, it's Back to the Future 1 because it's the first one established the story.
Yeah.
Number 2, I like the fact that they went to the future, but then they reprised by going back into the past again. It was like, okay, we're just going to remake the first film again in the second one. The third one was very unique in the fact that they set it in the Old West, which had its own particular problems in the storyline. But yes, you're absolutely right. The fact that Doc Brown gets the girl at the end of the movie.
That was so nice.
It's very sweet.
Yeah.
And I mean, rather than him being, the mad scientist, he's really, the nice guy, and he meets the beautiful woman, Mary Steenburgen, and he brings her to the future. So he has her, he's with her. I mean, it's really nice. It's just like, how do you able to do everything you can in the 19th century that you had difficulty doing in the 20th century in the first film? So, but again, this is fantasy. This is, don't look for logic here. Don't look for linear science. This is all fun. The fact that you can have your Mr. Fusion to create your own energy when you had to steal it from the who was that again? The
Libyans, the Libyan terrorists.
Yes, the Libyan terrorists, that you had to steal plutonium from them. It's like, okay, now you can just make it yourself. So. But then
which
again,
I like that. I like that little. That was great. That you could just use kind of almost whatever trash.
Yeah,
have handy.
Like banana peels.
I love that. I love that invention. Yeah,
it's the tie-in with the Mr. Coffee. So Mr. Fusion.
It speaks to my like recycling heart, because that's always been one of my passions is recycling. And so here you go. We're reusing our trash. It's like I loved it. So I love that part so much.
Yeah. And really, the flux capacitor has now become part of our nomenclature. It's part of our dialogue. So if something is unique or special, it's the flux capacitor, which you go like, well, a capacitor is just a part of an electronic device that controls voltage. But you put the word flux in front, whoa!
Now it's fancy.
Now it's fancy. And with that, and it was a cool device in it. I mean, and that's the thing. I was going back to the DeLorean. The way they built it, it looked cool on the inside. It looked like a time machine, and that's it. I mean, you think about, if you can, the movie The Time Machine with Rod Taylor from the 1960s, made by George Powell. And that time machine was in the vision of what H.G. Wells thought it was going to be, a device with a spinning dial that, generates the energy. But this seemed like, maybe it could work. And that's what gave it its credence. It made it, okay, I'll accept that you've got a time machine with 4 tires. I'll go with that, and that's what makes the movie so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that it seems believable and they make enough sense that you can follow it, even though it does get convoluted at times.
Well,
I think.
Well, I guess the biggest part, again, not that any of this is real or whatever, but the part that I had the problem the most, like the only
which is one of the questions, which is perfect because I think we'd be on the same page for some of the stuff.
Is like how he's holding this picture and his pieces of his family are disappearing.
That doesn't happen. No, either it's
they're either there or not. So his brother's legs disappear, his body disappear. Like that was the part that again, when I was 11 and watching it, sure. As I got a little older, that one piece is the one that I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, because if he changed the future, if the past changed the future, then the picture would be gone, or you wouldn't
instantly
have
right.
Yes. It's not a continuum of only half of him exists.
But it was
We're
almost like that was
here. Only half of him will exist.
It was almost like this is the sands of time catching up. Okay, we'll go with that.
So we'll accept it. Because it is just a silly movie. But if that was the part that I was like.
It's funny you say that because I've wanted the same thing, but then watching the Flash TV series, at one point, I can't remember when they do it, but they mentioned that somehow when you change the past, it takes time for the timeline to cement itself. And I like that. I was like, okay, it's traveling. So I buy that for the...
It's not a butterfly. It's more like a sloth moving slowly. I
want to buy. Well, again, I want to buy it. I want to buy in. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna try to reason it for myself. Okay, from a quantum mechanics perspective. Okay, so there's the uncertainty principle, and part of the understanding the uncertainty principle is the fact that you can't know an object's momentum and its location at the same time. And when I say an object, I really mean like an atom, or an electron or something like that. And so one of the harder parts to reconcile is, okay, so let's say you do take a measurement and they call this collapsing the function, where you know where it is, but then you don't know the momentum. But there's a point in time before where everything is fuzzy. And then there's the collapsing. So I'm trying to see if maybe in that fuzziness where you don't know, it's before anything's been solidified, before you've made the measurement, that's where this is living. Although I still have a hard time with the half body in the picture.
See, it's funny. The half body never bothered me. But what bothered me is that, so in part 2, when you go back to the past, there's the other Marty. So I feel like, should there be 2 Martys in the present day when he comes back from the past? Because shouldn't there already be a Marty who's already living, who's lived all of the experience that clearly his family has had, and he has had, but he has no memory of because he was, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, so then this is where I think we reconcile this by having, little the tree of timelines. So it's not truly the same exact timeline.
Okay, so there is.
Yeah.
Well, because so
I love
the
this.
Original Marty, in original timeline, he goes back, and things change enough that when he returns to the quote unquote present, when he returns to 1985, everything's different. Yet he retains the memories of a timeline that is he retains the memories of a different timeline.
Mm-hmm.
He still has his memories. So to him, something still existed that was his memories, but now he's in this new timeline. So that's why I think there has to be, it's not a continuous timeline. There's got to be multiple.
It's a branch. It's branched off.
But shouldn't there still be another Marty though? Someone who's already living in that time?
Well, no, because maybe the one that was living in that time went back and came back to the one that Marty abandoned.
Ooh, right.
or that he came back after he left. So by coming after he left, you've hopped over a period of time where he doesn't exist in the present until he catches up with that by coming from the past into the future. But again, folks, I hope you've enjoyed our TED Talk about science time travel, as brought to you by Adeena, who is actually qualified to have this discussion. The rest of us are all just speculators. That's all.
I'm speculating. I mean, obviously, time travel is not a real thing, so I'm speculating here too. But if we ever want to talk more about quantum mechanics, I'll bring it someday.
Yeah,
I wasn't planning on going there today, so I'm a little rusty on trying to explain this. But
the one thing about this movie that I do like, and it goes back even to the Rod Taylor time machine film, is that he takes the time machine with him. In so many movies, the person goes into the future or into the past and then is retrieved. But how are they retrieved without the device at the other end? So by the DeLorean being there, that is the time machine that he's with. And I thought that's good, because that solves that question of how do you retrieve someone from the past or move them to another time without the device with them.
I guess it solves the problem. I just love all the problems it creates by having the time machine go with them. Like, again, I know Back to the Future 2 is not like everyone's favorite, but I love just how many problems it causes by them going into the future and then Biff getting the book and going back into the past. I love all that. So it's like he was able to steal it, come back to the... Sorry, hold on. Hell yeah. He's able to steal it, go back to the past, give his past self the book, and then come back into the future, all before Marty and Doc figure out.
Doc Brown, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Figure out that it was gone just because it's time travel.
Yeah. And what's really scary is the fact that that future that they went to was a few years ago in real life now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the wildest thing.
Did you guys did you see the was it on Jimmy Fallon? No, not Jimmy Fallon. It was on one of the late nights in October 31st, 2015. They came out on stage and were like, we're in the future, but like Doc was kind of disappointed by our technology. He's like, oh, just cell phones, that's it? You don't have anything else?
Yep.
Well, here's the other thing, is that when he gets to the future, what's the big story? The Cubs win the World Series.
Oh, yeah.
That's happened.
Right.
But playing the Florida Marlins. That can't happen because they're both in the National League together. They wouldn't play against each other. But yes, it finally did. And there was a story that went around saying that if the Cubs win the World Series, the world comes to an end because it wasn't ever supposed to happen.
Wasn't it like 2004 is when it happened?
What, the Cubs won the World Series? No, it's 2008.
8 those two numbers.
2016.
Oh,
2016.
Why did I think 2004?
No, that was I can't remember who won 2004, but no, it was 2016. I know because being a Cubs fan, I remember that very, very well. I was very happy they won as well. But yes, that's one of the paradoxes in the film, because what year did Back to the Future 2 came out? It was 1989. So yes, by the time the Cubs were still a terrible team, but beloved by their fans from all Chicago.
Now, what's really interesting too is when you're saying about like time machines going with you, which is in Star Trek, the way they do it.
I didn't say it.
Right. I'm sorry. I had to do.
I love it. I'm glad you're bringing it in.
Well, because when you think about that whole, so this movie, Back to the Future 1, came out in 1985. 1986 is when Star Trek 4 came out. So I don't know, just that whole concept of taking the time machine with you. I don't know. For me, that feels like the baseline. That is the baseline method of time travel in science fiction. And that whole concept of sending someone and pulling them back. I feel like, to me, that's the unusual thing, where sending the, you go with the machine, to me feels like normal, because they did that in Star Trek several times.
Yeah.
With Doc Brown's ship, by the way, which I love.
That's true. Right. That's true.
Right.
That is true.
Yeah. Yes.
Who knew?
Yeah. Well, in the 1960s, there was a TV show called The Time Tunnel, where two main characters fall into it, and they're sent into the future. And they constantly, or in the past, whatever the case may, and they're able to manipulate them in the present by moving them different events in history or whatever. And again, you had someone manipulating their movement from afar, but that's again Irwin Allen television, which was Monster of the Week. So you can't really. But again, it's been used. I mean, even in TOS, they travel back.
But they took the
they took the
them.
ship. They took the
ship
Enterprise with them.
Yeah.
Right.
Most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time.
Well, I mean,
that's true.
so
Not all the time.
I was going to say.
Mhm.
All right, I was about to say Guardians of the Galaxy, the Guardian of Forever. I apologize.
That's true. The Guardian of Forever, and then what was the one with the library? Tomorrow is Yesterday.
Tomorrow is Yesterday.
Where
right.
like Spock goes back to one time period, and Kirk and McCoy go to another one through the library.
Right, because they're trying to
ATOS.
get everybody away from the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about to go supernova, or
So that's
Right,
true.
exactly.
There were
is gonna
several
go
times
supernova.
in
Yeah,
original
so-
series that they did not take it with them. That's true.
Exactly.
Okay, well, never mind.
But it's
that's-
still cool though. Like it's still, but it's also just unique that it's a car. It's a
Yeah.
thing, and it does not. So he's not using he's using futuristic technology, but it feels like he's making it out of everyday parts, and so you kind of it's a cool vibe.
Yeah.
Now, one question I did have: how do you feel about the exposition in the first one? Because to me, I think it's perfect in that they establish so much that you have the person outside of the clock tower who's raising money for it. He's like, remember what happened 30 years ago. And then the way the parents explain how they first met at the dance and how that whole thing worked out.
Those are all the Chekhov's guns.
Yeah, it's like, but you're getting all the information you need, but it doesn't just feel like someone's
perfect.
sitting down and here's all the exposition I have to get through, because it felt organic. And that's sometimes a rarity in TV shows or movies, especially if they are dealing with like really hard, like sci-fi time travel stuff.
No, I thought that was great. I mean, like, this is a great example of, I think, how to do that. And the movie is just under 2 hours. So I think we were talking not too long ago about the length of movies, and that it's okay for, movies to not be too long. So just under 2 hours is a great length. And look what they were able to do in it.
It's such a good, it's a good length. They come in, they tell the story, you get to know the characters.
Everything you need.
Everything you need, and then you're out. And you don't feel like you stayed too long.
And then they clearly set up for the sequel.
At the very end, yes.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember, was that meant to be a setup? Like, were they planning on doing the other two?
So
right after?
Who knows when or where they were planning? Well, I'm sure someone knows, but the fact that the way they left it off was a satisfying ending, yet perfectly open for, okay, we can have another movie. It was just kind of the best of both worlds, because I'm sure, I guess at that point they knew they wanted to do another movie, but who knows, maybe they didn't know if they were going to have budget or who knows what. So it was because if the second movie never happened, okay, you don't get more, but you still had the conclusion to what you had.
Right. It
So
seemed more
perfect.
like it was
perfect.
like almost not a joke, but like, we got to do something about your kids.
Right. It could have been,
Like,
right. Exactly.
It could have just been a funny gag at the end, but then it's like, oh, it's actually a real movie.
Right. Like it could have gone both ways, which is that is perfect. That's perfect. This movie is perfect.
Then you have the one-time paradox in the story, which is Marty McFly knows about rockabilly music in the future. He goes back in time, plays it at the high school, and then the guy goes, "Hey, you got to listen to this music." And all of a sudden, like, did Marty McFly invent rockabilly? But he knew about it from the future. Well, how could he know about it in the future if he invented it in the past and it didn't?
Because of the different timelines. Because again, when he gets back to his future, when he gets back to 1985 at the end of movie one, it is not the same 1985 he left. It's clearly not the same 1985 he left. It's all different. So it's not his 1985. He went to some other branch of 1985. Yeah. He had to have, because he still has all his memories from before.
Right. He's the only one who does. And Doc Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Doc Brown. So because the only two characters they go.
But no, Doc Brown doesn't have the memories of the original, Doc Brown has the knowledge of from when he came back, when Marty was back in 1955.
You're right. You're right. Thank you.
Yeah. Which is also, that's a subtle difference. Because
Mhm.
then, he knew he did invent the flux capacitor before Marty showed back up in the past, remember, because he hit his head on the toilet, yada, yada.
Mhm.
So he still went on to build the time machine, but he went on to build it knowing that it was going to be used and Marty was going to come back.
Right. So did he always know? Can we just assume that it was like one of those things where it was always meant to happen? There was no 1955
Well, where does the loop
where Marty
start?
didn't. Yeah, that's
Mhm. Again,
There's
but
lots of paradoxes here.
there's a lot.
yeah, then that's the beauty and the complexity of time travel stories is that you get this, and it's in all of them.
Mhm.
How does the past affect the future when the future is affected by the past? Yada yada yada. But that's okay. It's all fun. It's all
Well,
fun.
one question I've always had, which I just think is the most interesting thing, is that both parents become really good friends with Marty. They all like Marty. And so isn't there a little bit of a, hey, honey, what's going on with our son? He looks like that guy we used to know in high school.
So
How does that get explained away?
here's my explanation for that. Okay, here's my explanation for that. And this might not be the most original explanation because I feel like I've read things like it. Maybe even it's possible I've even read this in the context of this movie. So if anyone's been like, oh, I read this somewhere else, I'm sorry, I didn't, it's just the fact that human memory is that bad. Like, seriously, I was thinking about something the other day, where I can remember someone's room in their bedroom from 30 years ago. I can't remember their face. It's been 15 years since I've seen this person. I can't picture, and I've not seen a picture of them, or I can't remember their face for the life of me. And
Yep.
I think really people's memories are that bad.
Yes, that's why we
Right,
have
true.
photos to help
Yeah.
to jog our memories. Secondly, what was his name in the past? Calvin Klein.
Right.
So they would have said, oh, I knew a guy. He's funny. He looks like you or reminds us of you.
Yeah.
Maybe. And his name was Calvin Klein, even if they did. But so many 30 years have gone by. You're right.
Mhm.
And in 30 years.
And they don't have a picture of him.
And it's not like they
No.
have this. They don't have Facebook or any other
No.
social media, so they can't just
Right.
look up and be like, wait, did we, like, what are
Oh,
some
yeah.
of the pictures from that night?
Yeah.
And
Right.
I have an old photograph here and there.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's that's very plausible and very understandable why they didn't remember him. But of course, everything is completely changed in the future in favor of mom and dad and son and girlfriend, and everything is good because, like you said, Adeena, this could have been a standalone film. And if they wanted to, all they had to do was cut off the very end of the film
Mhm.
if there was not going to be a sequel.
Or not, or just leave
Right.
it and we're done.
Yeah.
So if a
Yeah.
sequel
Mhm.
never happened, we'd probably be sitting here saying, oh, it would have been kind of cool if they had done a sequel someday,
Mhm.
whatever. But it's okay that they didn't. But if, it would have been okay if they didn't, but they did. And that's cool because
I've always said
they're
that about
interesting
the
movies.
Star Wars: A New Hope. It was a complete film.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There didn't have to be a next movie if there was no successful. It wasn't
Mhm.
successful. It was a complete film, and that's what you can plan for a sequel in a film, expecting it, but then you also can make it where it's
Yeah.
just standalone, or even the film The Terminator. They leave you hanging, wondering what the future is going to be. And they left the door open that if it was successful, they did have it, or it was a complete film, and
Yeah.
that was fine.
Which I like that, when they do
Mhm.
things like the Lord of the Rings is a little bit different because it mirrors the books and we knew about the
Mhm.
books, but the Hobbit, turning the Hobbit into 3
Oh,
films,
that was a bad
that
choice.
was painful. That was
was brutal.
terribly painful. Right.
I saw
And
it because it
like,
was in the theaters, and
Yeah.
that was okay. What are we going to? Well, it's out
Right.
this weekend. We might as well see it. There's nothing else out, but
it's incomplete.
it-
Each film is incomplete without the others, and that's annoying. I find that annoying.
Well,
Yeah,
that's where they
yeah.
get you locked in. That
Bah.
you got to see the next movie.
They should have
and
just
again,
done
we
it
do
in
that.
one.
We do that on TV shows as well. They have the spoiler at the end, like, oh, what's going to happen to them, the person, and you got to tune in next season.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was good that it was, yeah, that like you can leave it even if you don't see the other two movies, you can feel like you're satisfied. You got a complete story. But it's the thing that I think is so crazy is just how little sleep that Marty gets. If you think about everything that happens in the three movies, I think he has one good night of rest, I guess, when he gets back to the present, and then immediately goes to the future, and then back to the past, and then back to the past again, and then back to the other past.
Adrenaline.
And yeah.
But I got to see a very special version of Back to the Future 2 when my wife and I were in France in 2019. We're just sitting here flipping the channel, and what comes on? Back to the Future 2, dubbed in French.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So the pacing of French words does
Je
not
suis
fit.
Marty. Wait, no.
Oh my
Je suis
God.
Calvin Klein.
Yes. We were just laughing watching it, just seeing that the words, it was bad enough for the Japanese science fiction film, but the language did not fit the mouth movements any way, shape, or form. But it was fun to watch it in French. Same movie, but yeah, seeing it in a different, how it's presented in another country.
When I was, of course, everything for me comes back to Star Trek 4. When I was in college studying German, I managed to get a copy of Star Trek 4 dubbed in German, which was great. And especially learning a language when you know what they're supposed to be saying. It was awesome.
Oh, I tried doing that with Independence Day. I was like trying to learn Spanish. I thought I'll just watch it in Spanish. And
oh my gosh.
I didn't get very far in it because it was fun though. It was cool.
Was it dubbed in Spanish? Was it dubbed in Spanish, or did it have subtitles in Spanish?
Oh, you know what? I think I put it on subtitles.
Okay.
Or I put subtitles on. So it was different, but it was still like, it helped though. It's just like, okay, this word probably means this. I know what they're saying. I could hear them saying it. And I know the dialogue inside out. But yeah, I should actually see if I could try watching.
Retour vers le futur. I can't, my French pronunciation is like the worst, but I've been wanting to do this. I've actually been meaning to like look for like that Star Trek movie again in German and look for these things, especially now I'm trying to learn Italian. So I got to do this. I got to find some Star Trek in Italian.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ooh, French lesson. Learn French with a movie. Very specifically. Oh, that's kind of cool. And so, yeah, that's exactly what this is. It's a clip from Back to the Future. But it's specifically learn French with a movie. So it's got French and English subtitles in it. Oh, that's kind of cute.
That's a good idea.
I need this in Italian.
But isn't that true of so many people who move to the United States and learn our language from watching television?
TV? Yeah. When I was in Germany, it was fun to again, we didn't spend a lot of time, my mom and I were out doing things, but when we were at the, various hotels and stuff a little bit, seeing The Simpsons dubbed in, I remember specifically seeing The Simpsons dubbed in German, that's always fun.
I would love to hear a German version of Homer Simpson. Must be hilarious.
German Homer Simpson. See, I'm on the Google while we're, I should put away. Here you go. Oh gosh, there's a lot. So just Google, on YouTube, or just YouTube German Homer Simpson, and you'll get a lot of interesting things.
Okay, so just as a tangent, a friend of mine showed me a YouTube video of this gentleman who would say a phrase in English, French, Italian, and then German. And the German always came out like he was ready to punch somebody in the nose.
Right.
German is a hard sound, very harsh.
The French was always so, romantic, and the Italian was so flowing, and the German sounded like he was running a garbage disposal.
So are there any things that that just really rub you the wrong way with Back to the Future? Any of the movies? Even though we're basically saying it feels like it's almost like a perfect movie, especially if we're looking at one.
So can we just jump to what we know what you're getting at?
Or yeah, but also not just that, but yes.
Well, so the two potentially problematic parts is one, that whole we're all like a little raising our eyebrows when Marty's mom is hitting on Marty.
Yeah.
But
That's
but this is where it's like it is a comedy, it is a comedy.
and that's easier to kind of get over just because she doesn't know it's her son, because how
Right.
could it?
Right.
But when it gets to the fact that is like George is a peeping Tom, it's a little.
But it's very, I don't know. Again, I saw this as an 11-year-old, and it was like I was aware of that concept. So I don't know. I don't remember. It's like, again, it is not condoning this being a good thing. It's acknowledging that people sometimes do stuff like that.
Right.
And to me, that's a different, like that's one of the hard things in TV and movie these days, when everyone's very concerned with everything in TV and film seems to, like, everyone wants and expects them to be role models. And it's like, no, these are not necessarily role models. These are just, for everything from caricatures of people to just showing the imperfections and everything. So, like, I didn't watch it and think, oh, okay, they're doing it in a movie, that means it's okay. Like,
that means it's something you should go off and do.
Right.
And,
no, I feel like most people don't think like that.
Let me ask you this question. In Star Wars A New Hope, when Leia gives Luke a kiss on the lips
Empire
and says
Strikes
for
Back.
luck. No,
For the good luck. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, since they're good luck, you go, oh, well, she doesn't know that's her brother she's kissing. And he says to Han in the Millennium Falcon, see, you think like a girl like her and a guy like me? No. But he's hitting on his own sister. We don't know that when we're watching it, but we find later on that they're brother and sister, and you go, wait a minute. That's kind of weird.
Like,
yeah, that's kind of weird.
I mean, that's a little strange, but it's weirder in Empire when she does the full-on kiss, and it's like they knew that they were going to be revealing in that movie that
yes, that's right. And you go,
sister, even though that was a spite kiss.
They didn't really reveal it. They hinted at it.
Oh, right, you're right.
In movie 2, they revealed it for real in movie 3, but they hinted at it in movie 2.
So when you see movie 3 and you start thinking about movie 1 or movie 2, you go, ugh.
Yeah. Also, it's like that was a spite kiss too.
Yeah.
That was just like, hey Han, I'm going to show you something. You're going to be real mad about this.
Yeah,
I don't like the way you're behaving right now.
Yeah, but Luke's all like, hey,
he's just like,
he goes, yeah, look at me. Yes, that's so again. But it's even less more in Back to the Future because she has no idea who this is, but her character had a propensity to fall in love with somebody who was injured. If it was going to be Marty or it's going to be George, his father, it was going to be somebody. So that's where they had the fun juxtaposition. Now he has to figure out a way of getting his mom and dad together, because if they don't get together, Marty doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's that's the fun part of the story, is this, trying to hook your parents up when they don't like each other, don't really know each other. And as you can see just how awkward his dad is, and like, how is this going to happen? How is this going to happen? And that's the fun of watching it unfold to that point. And then, of course, in the future, everything is much better for them. Except when you go to movie 2 and you have this horrendous family together of all the various family members, all played by Michael J. Fox.
Yeah,
that was funny.
It's funny, but it's like, okay, this is a choice, but it's also just it's a cool gag. Like, I've always wondered how that works, and I get it works, and even Trek does this too, to a degree, where it's like all ancestors look like their not their ancestors, they look like their future selves.
Yes.
I mean, it's all the actors playing the ancestors. And so it's cool, but it's a little strange sometimes when it's like, oh, all Biffs are going to look like Biff. Biff,
yes.
Griff, and I don't remember who the Biff, what the Biff is, or from Back to the Future 3, what his name is.
But in the context of that kind of a movie, it's perfectly fine. Because right, it's meant to be a little humorous. So obviously, obviously it works.
It has
I think it's like it's meant to be humorous, but it's also just meant to say who the ancestors are, and
it helps keep right
the continuity
of the characters, so we're not confused.
Yeah,
And like even little things like the fact that they always like and that's not really a little thing, but the fact that every movie has a chase with Marty being chased by a Biff in the town square.
Well, that's
it's just like
that's fun too.
It's a clever little fun, like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
And who in the world would not want to have a hoverboard?
Oh, I want
That might have
hoverboard.
been one of the coolest things you can see in the film is a hoverboard. You know, it's a surfboard. I mean, it's a skateboard and it's a flying machine. It's like, yes, that's what the future is supposed to give us. Hoverboards. Well, sorry, folks, no hoverboard. Well, actually, we do have.
Well, we have, those boards that that are really
wheel.
terrible that everyone falls off of them. And I imagine, to me, like, unless you've got some good stabilizing brakes or something, I imagine the same issues with the hoverboard.
Yes.
Like no one's staying on those for like more than a second.
Yeah, I love that hoverboard. I love the color pink. Like that pink on the board is just the best thing. And that's what I love about the future is that it's just so bright and so much neon. And like, I love it.
Well, that was the 80s projected. I mean, like neon was all like 1980s. That's 1980s projected into the future.
And I want the little lights on the sidewalks.
I'll show you a picture of me in my 5th grade class photo. I'm wearing the brightest neon pink vest like that ever existed ever.
Oh, we need more neon.
No, we don't. We had that. Been there, done that. We don't need
I haven't been there. I haven't done that. I've seen it.
Wait a minute, but that still doesn't compare to how bad the clothes were in the 1970s. Okay, leisure suits, collars out to here, ties 3 feet wide. No.
Okay,
I can accept everyone wanting to look like Julie Brown or Madonna or something in the 1980s. That's fine.
Oh, I had an armful of jelly bracelets.
Oh my gosh,
because we all did.
And was one sleeve pulled down over your shoulder? Oh yeah. Yep. Flash dance. Thank you for setting a better clothing than in Saturday Night Fever. Thank you. Okay, we've gone off tangent again. Sorry about that, folks.
Where were we? We were talking about the problems.
Yes.
The problems. Yeah, the problems. And then I feel like we talked about like the sexual assault.
We talked about that before the show. Before the show today.
We can bring it up now again.
Yeah, because I felt like I gotta maybe I'm wrong on this, and I might be. It's very possible that I was like being too sensitive. Like it seemed to me like it was just he's standing up for her, but you're glossing over the sexual assault. But you guys feel like it wasn't actually glossed over. It was shown to be this is actually pretty serious.
Yeah,
and Biff is not a nice guy.
Yeah. Well, no. I'm going to say, as someone who in the real world, I've spent my entire adult life being worried and concerned that something like that could happen. No, I didn't feel like the movie was glossing over it. I felt the only thing that that always bothered me a little bit, but I understand it in the context of the movie and the time period that it's set. And this is something that might be different if this movie was made today, is when I first saw the movie, I'm like, why isn't she kicking him? Why can't she kick him and try to like really like kick him in the place where you're supposed to kick people? Why isn't she doing that? But the movie needs George to save her. So I understand that, but I feel like that's the thing that might not fly today is, who is doing the saving? Is the woman like the princess need to get rescued, or is she rescuing herself? That's kind of the thing. But I always felt that was always like people have, to me, understood that was uber wrong. Biff is an uber bad guy. I don't feel like there was any softening of that ever. At least that's my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
I agree with you, Adeena. And again, it had to take George to that point that he, his inner strength came out to protect this woman that he loved, and that then she again realizes, he's the perfect guy, or he's the guy, her knight in shining armor who comes to save her. So yeah, back then it was acceptable. It was right. Today, no, I don't think that storyline would work as well.
Acceptable or right for the man to do the saving versus her trying to, that part, not the fact that she's getting assaulted.
No, and if she defends herself and he assists her or helps her, and they find that true love because they both work together against a common foe, that's how you could have done it to a more modern sensibility of the two working together.
Or here's how I think it could have worked if it was being filmed today. So she just doesn't in the initial moment, she doesn't get the leverage to, like, say, kick him in the place where you kick people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He comes, he tries to save her, but he gets knocked out. Then she does get the opportunity to do her thing. She knocks Biff out, and then she is now being Florence Nightingale, the nurse to George,
comfort him.
And then that whole I'm falling in love with the guy that I'm taking care of. Yeah, so that could have worked today.
We don't want to start rewriting novels, and making them more current, but it can be done.
It can be done.
I would love to see
this
like a remake.
Fine.
Yeah.
The movie is fine. This doesn't need to change for that.
No.
Oh yeah,
No.
like I think like it's always the context of the time, and I think I would be curious to see what a remake is, or what it would look like.
No.
Oh, okay.
There's enough like remakes and things. I just recently saw the Little Mermaid live action thing, which is really cute.
What did you think?
I liked it. It was really cute. There's one scene that I was like, I think there needs to be more emotion in this scene. When her Ariel's dad destroys her like little enclave, of human memorabilia.
Mm-hmm.
The emotion she had in that scene wasn't like enough. Like she should have been like more distraught and upset. Other than that, it was a great movie. I loved it. I thought it was really cute.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point being is there's a lot of remakes out there.
There are a lot
so
of remakes.
I don't want to encourage anyone to do more remakes. Make more newer things.
Right. That's probably the proper attitude.
And even the people who remake it, who owned it to begin with, such as the remake of Pinocchio by Disney, is terrible compared to the original cartoon.
I haven't seen that one.
But the remake of Wendy and Peter of the Peter Pan story works very, very well. Again, updated to a modern sensibility and still very, very good. So it doesn't, even the people who are the holders of the flame don't always get it right when they do their own remakes.
Sure.
Yeah, that's true. I think, I mean, as much as I'm curious about it, it's just better let's leave this alone and let's just tell new stories.
And enjoy
it. I think
we're share it with our kids and enjoy it. And
because really, if you remake it, then people now do not get to enjoy it the way it was originally.
Yeah.
Because they'll compare it to the... Yeah, no, you're right. That's true. One thing I will say that I think is just so interesting is if you guys ever watched the show Fringe, when the main character, I can't remember her name, Olivia, goes into the alternate universe, there's a movie theater that she walks by, and it's like playing Back to the Future, but it's with Eric Stoltz. And I think that's the funniest. It was like, okay, well, what
I only learned about that recently.
That's great.
That Eric Stoltz was originally going to have Michael J. Fox's character.
That's funny.
There's a really good there's a show on Netflix, The Movies That Made Us, and they did a whole episode on Back to the Future, and that's where I learned about that.
Yes.
That would have been a wholly different movie.
Yeah.
Would not have been a comedy. Not in the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I that's actually a very good series on how they make movies evolve from concept to completion, and how during the process it evolves into something maybe it never intended to be in the first place, especially a film like Die Hard. It was not supposed to be what it ended up being, but it ended up being better than it was going to be to begin with because of the changes they made during production. So, yeah.
But yeah, the Die Hard one was cool. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But any final thoughts on Back to the Future before we wrap it up?
Well,
my only thought is the name alone, Back to the Future, back to the past, going to the future. It was always a cute little tie-in of the two together. Kind of confusing, which has left you wondering about the movie when it came out. Back to the Future was it made you want to see the movie because you wanted to find out what that meant, and you found out.
And again, it just has a nice ring to it. Just sounds. I guess it's also because like that's what we grew up with, knowing that that's what it was called. But to me, it just sounds right. Like Back to the Future. It's perfect.
Yep. Adeena, any final thoughts?
1.21 gigawatts.
I can't do that. We got to go back to the future. Okay, enough of.
So I might have to ask you to read the final line, Steve, when we sign off.
Oh my God!
If you can do that, if you can say the line that I love the line. I think even Reagan quoted it in one of his speeches.
Which?
Where
I'm confused.
Okay, where I talk about we don't need roads. Yeah, if you can say the line.
I know the line.
Yeah,
I'll do it. I'll say it, but
Go
I
ahead,
can't
you
do
say
the
it.
voice. And then
That's
Steve can
okay.
say it. Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads.
Oh, okay.
yeah, exactly.
Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. Yeah. I won't be replacing him at any time in the future.
Right.
He is Christopher Lloyd. He's perfect. And he's still working because he was on Andor.
That's
it
right.
was nice to see him
That's
acting.
right.
Yes,
Right.
it was nice to see him pop up again, you know?
Mandalorian. Was it Mandalorian?
Oh, that's I was
was
still
it?
working through
Okay.
that.
He was
Season
in
3?
the Lizzo Jack Black episode.
Oh, okay.
You're
I heard about
right.
the
Thank
episodes.
you.
I've not
Thank
seen
you.
it
You're
yet.
absolutely right. I was confusing
Which is a
him with
great episode. I loved Lizzo and Jack Black together, and we should talk about that some other time.
Yes,
Yeah,
that was a lot
definitely.
of fun. Okay, thank you for the correction as to which of the many different
There's just so many.
Like
There's
Star Wars.
It blurs together.
Yes,
It blurs.
exactly. Yes. All right. Here we
Yes.
go.
But yes, as usual, thank you everyone for a good discussion. I love talking time travel, and yes, I think we definitely need to have a quantum mechanics discussion because I want to talk to someone that actually knows about it. But thank you everyone for listening. If you have questions, comments, or want to suggest episodes for us, you can reach us on our Facebook page, which is amazing. The Big Sci-Fi Podcast on Facebook. Check us out. And remember, where we're going, we don't need roads.
Just as long as we remember where we parked.
Just remember where you parked. And I just feel bad for those joggers who were just trying to go for a nice jog and all that stuff happens. That's all I got, everybody.
Good night, folks.